welcome to Norwood News. The Norwood Mustang Marching Band's competition season has begun. The band competed in a NESBA, New England Scholastic Band Association competition at Medford in September, bringing home first place, as well as high caption awards for Best Music, Best Percussion, and Best Color Guard. This past weekend, the band also competed in NESBA Melrose, where they were thrilled to once again take home first place, as well as high caption awards for Best Music, Best Percussion, and Best Color Guard. The 56-member band and color guard are composed of students in Norwood Public Schools grades 8 through 12.
This is a big step for us as a program this year, and I hope you have an opportunity to enjoy it and come catch us. We have several performances coming up in the very near future. Our home show will be on Sunday, October 21st, and the band will be playing at about 4 p.m. We'll be joined by 11 other bands from around Massachusetts, including the University of New Hampshire's Wildcat Band as an exhibition performance at the end of the evening. So I hope you have an opportunity to come see the band in color guard in this year's production of The Black Swan.
On this week's Living Local, we go to the Norwood Space Center to look inside the studio of abstract painter Denise Driscoll. This week, NCM is painting it local.
Hi, I'm Denise Driscoll. I'm an artist. I primarily paint, mostly abstract paintings. I like to work with repeating shapes, squares, circles, dots, and build up accumulations of them.
Denise Driscoll did not start out as a professional artist. She began as a graphic designer, but when it came time to choose one profession, she followed her passion.
I was a graphic designer for 20 years, and the whole time I was working as a graphic designer, which I loved, I kept thinking, I really just want to stop one day and paint. And it took me 20 years to take that step, but once I started painting, I couldn't do both.
Denise has found stability and consistency at the Norwood Space Center after being forced to leave her previous space.
So I ended up at the Space Center. Well, I painted for a while on my own, and then I went to graduate school at Lesley University and got my MFA in visual arts there 10 years ago. So I ended up at the Space Center because I was in a studio in Framingham, and unfortunately the studio spaces the building was sold to be redeveloped into condos. And I wanted to find a place that wasn't going to be sold in a year or two. A lot of buildings that artists work in are ripe for redevelopment, and found this place, and because it's being developed now, I knew it was stable and would be a good place to settle in.
Denise feels right at home in the Norwood community.
I really like it. I'm learning Norwood from here out, and we've had a few open studio events and other events where there were lots of people here, and very welcoming crowd. A lot of people from Boston were coming, as well as people from Norwood.
Denise expresses her feelings through her paintings rather than using any specific techniques.
I think a lot about how everything is connected to everything else, so it's a very broad theme, but because of that, I listen to a lot of books while I paint. I listen to audiobooks. I read a lot, and I read a lot about, I'm interested in psychology and in inner states and emotional states, and so I find that those come out in the painting as I work.
Be sure to follow Denise Driscoll on Facebook and Instagram, and also visit her website at www.denisedriscoll.com.
Stay tuned after this break to find out what's happening in your local government.
Hi everyone, this is Katie Seestead. I'm here to talk about our Glow Stick event. On October 30th at 5:30 p.m. we have partnered up with 5 different departments around town. The police department, the fire department, the town manager's office, the Board of Health, as well as the recreation center. We are giving out not your average glow sticks. They are 18-inch foam sticks, and they are going to light up on Halloween. We're asking families to tag us on social media on October 31st, Halloween. These glow sticks are trying to get more seen on Halloween, so that way our trick-or-treaters are staying safe. We ask once again that you tag us, and we thank all of the departments for working with us to make Norwood a safer place during trick-or-treat on Halloween.
Welcome back to Norwood News. On Tuesday evening, the Board of Selectmen met in their chambers at Town Hall. Chairman Maloney had a bittersweet announcement to make regarding a person near and dear to them.
This is a letter from our, I won't be a wise guy friend, a letter from our clerk submitting her letter of retirement from Mrs. Gesso. And I'm not going to read it, friend, because I'll get emotional if I do. So,
I want you to read it.
Mrs. Gesso has announced her retirement effective January 11th, 2019.
She was the face of the selectmen, and that's very much true. She has represented this board with great dignity and respect to the citizens of Norwood, and I want to personally thank her for that, so thank you.
As a relative new member of the board, I got a lot of coaching from Mrs. Gesso, and I greatly appreciate that. She definitely will be missed on the board, and we wish her only the best.
Mrs. Gesso's career has been extended and wonderful, and tonight is a perfect example of how she's bailed us out so many times with the knowledge of the procedure, continuance rather than closing the hearing. But it's been consistent, Mrs. Gesso. Thank you.
It's with a larger than I have the words for regret, that I would make a motion to accept the resignation and offer Ms. Gesso the best in the future after her retirement, and she keeps up the good work in the meantime. I note part of her letter, very short section here. She indicated that the staff and herself were dedicated, that their first priority would be the Board of Selectmen, the residents of Norwood, and that has always been the case. I go back to Ruth McCann and Millie Smith with her, and Leona and Julie, and you have just totally know all of those people and know that they were also dedicated like that. You carried on that tradition tremendously, and I just want to thank you personally for everything you've always done for me and trying to do my job here, so thank you very much.
The board also met with Dr. Salvador Perla, the new president of Norwood Hospital. Dr. Perla, who joined the hospital 3 months ago, took the time to introduce himself and describe his background, as well as talk about new surgeons that have joined the Norwood Hospital team.
Well, I'm very excited to be here tonight and very excited to be at Norwood Hospital. I've been there for about 3 months now, really getting to learn about our staff, our medical staff, the communities. Been spending a lot of time outside of the hospital, really getting to learn from what people are looking for in a community hospital.
The next Board of Selectmen meeting will be Tuesday, October 16th at 7 p.m. Also on Tuesday, the Library Board of Trustees held their monthly meeting to discuss a variety of topics. To start the meeting, David Hajar, chairman of the Town-Wide Facilities Committee, gave a presentation to the board about consolidating the town's facilities. After 45 minutes of discussion, Hajar informed the trustees of the town-wide's future timeline.
Our goal, John, is to make our final recommendations to the school committee and the board of selectmen by the end of the year, so that we can go through the budget process to work with both sides in making sure that budgets are adjusted to account for creating, and that we would start July 1. Again, it's all dependent on if budgets get passed in May, but our goal is to complete, and there's still a lot of work to be done, but to complete our recommendation at the end of the year, first 2 weeks in January, and then start working with the Finance Commission on adjusting budgets to account for this department.
The Library Board of Trustees' next meeting will be November 13th. The Community Preservation Committee met in Town Hall Tuesday night to tackle topics such as project application breakdowns and land purchasing procedures. One of the first items on the agenda was the introduction of the newest member of the committee, John Opria.
As previously introduced, we have a new member of our board tonight. John, would you like to introduce yourself and give us an introduction?
Yeah, sure. John Opria. I live on Austin Street down in South Norwood. Been there about 5 years now. Live there with my wife and 6-year-old daughter. Town meeting member. Let's see, other committees that I serve on. So the Trails Subcommittee, I'm an active member in that. Also a newer group in town, Progress Norwood, very active in that. Helped put on the Earth Day event this past spring, which was a big accomplishment for us. So now it's going to be an annual event, which we're super excited about. So it's a little bit about personal life, I guess professional life. So I'm an accountant. I work at a local tree and landscape company in Needham. I'm the divisional controller there, so I oversee the accounting staff and client service staff. Been there about 9 years.
Shortly after his introduction, discussion ensued concerning the appointment of a committee treasurer, with new member John as a primary candidate to fill the position. The committee ultimately decided it was best to table the appointment until guidelines about the position are better outlined.
Temporarily, we have a good handle on how we think we want to proceed. But certainly that's an area, now that we've actually got money and we're theoretically spending money, or we are actually spending money, we want to try to put things in place now where it's just it's a permanent resident of the agenda. So I think that's where it continues to evolve, John, and we can certainly flesh out the job title and the responsibilities, I guess, the job content, but I think it's definitely a work in progress. So.
We look forward to John's progress with the committee in the coming weeks. The Community Preservation Committee will again meet on November 14th. On Wednesday night, the school committee held its first away meeting of the school year. The committee met at the Willett School. The committee had a full agenda, starting with school improvement plans from Diane Ferreira, principal of the Balch School, Carolyn Robbins, principal of the Willett School and Little Mustangs Preschool Academy, and Dr. Margot Frasick, principal of the Coakley Middle School. After hearing from the principals, the committee moved on to discuss policy, then the budget. The potential for an override was heavily discussed during the budget portion of the agenda. Committee members voiced their thoughts and opinions on the override.
I worry that we're reaching the point where we're going to start to figure out what the number for the override is going to be that we're going to be eventually asking for, if we are asking for one. And if we're not thinking, I just want to make sure that we're asking for enough.
I think at this stage, we should be making sure that everything we want is on this list. Again, we're not looking for, we're not trying to make ourselves into Westwood. We're not trying to make ourselves into Needham. What do we think is a reasonable school system that fits the needs of Norwood?
This is not enough. This is a start. And I'm really frustrated to hear Dr. Thompson say that he feels we are being rushed.
So, we're zeroing in on Norwood's needs, what Norwood needs, and I am an educator, and I will support in every single way the possibility of doing whatever we can do. However, our schools are in need of curriculum revision. We're in need of a lot of things. Our lower level kids are where we should be targeting.
The next school committee meeting will be Wednesday, October 17th at 7 p.m. at the Savage Center. On Thursday, the Conservation Trails Subcommittee met to discuss current business such as upcoming events and trail maps, as well as brainstorm ideas for future projects, one of which includes an idea for the committee to collaborate with Progress Norwood's Earth Week plans to do a trail cleanup event.
Another good idea for the spring is hooking on to the Earth Day event that Progress Norwood is going to be having. We're actually going to be expanding it to an Earth Week, basically linking Earth Day and Arbor Day. And that whole week is going to be events between the 2 weekends. During the week there's going to be events, including weekend events, and a lot of things in the works. But it would be interesting to have trails, or people walk the trails and clean up the trash and pick up the trash in conjunction with the 10 or 12 other sites around town that we clean up. Most of them are the playgrounds and the schools and whatnot, as far as what Progress Norwood did, but it could be even a separate day where we clean up the trails and we can organize that whole process.
Along with a brainstorming session was a review of the dry run trail summary for the Progress Norwood Community Walk on October 28th. The committee discussed in their findings that they urged participants to dress for the elements.
Put together some kind of a trip summary of our own, and not only of the property in general, but as it relates to October 28th at 2 p.m. A couple of things as far as the accessibility of the property. I think it's a good idea to stay with the Hawes Pool as the trailhead, essentially, the landing spot, because A, it's accessible in the event of any carriages or wheelchair or ADA accessibility goes. So I think that's certainly a good place for us to start. It will almost certainly be muddy on the red trail and probably on the blue trail. So as they say in Vermont, it's going to be mud season, so wear your mudders. bring your mutters or wear your mutters, whichever one it goes.
The Trails Subcommittee will meet next at Town Hall on October 23rd. To watch complete government coverage, tune into the NCM Government Channel or watch it on demand at norwoodcommunitymedia.org. Stay tuned after this break to find out what is happening in your schools.
Hi, I'm Patty Fanning and this is John Grove. We're part of the Old Parish Preservation Volunteers, and we're here at Old Parish Cemetery. The cemetery workers are working hard behind us, if you can hear that. John is here, and he's going to tell us about our upcoming events.
Hi everyone, I'm John Grove. As Patty said, we have some upcoming events here at the Old Parish Cemetery. The first one is coming on October 20th at 3 p.m. We're going to open the gates to the cemetery and let people visit. And we're going to have a guided tour around the cemetery, focusing on a little bit of the history about the cemetery. So if you're interested in Norwood, if you're interested in history and you want to see a little slice of green space in the heart of Norwood Center, visit us on October 20th at 3 p.m.
Welcome back. Now let's toss it over to Tim Roos to find out what is happening around the Norwood School District.
Hi guys, thanks for joining me for another update on events and activities happening around our Norwood school community. At the Balch School, Ms. Dussault's 4th grade class had a special reader last week. Josh Brigadier, father of Sophie, came to the class to read some books. Josh is a narrator for Audible Books and also a reporter for WCVB Channel 5. He was very entertaining, and both Ms. Dussault and the children were thrilled to listen to him. With that kind of background, I'm sure he nailed it all in one take. Her class also learned that their shadows are longest in the morning. There's pretty much no shadow at noon, and that their shadow gets smaller as the day goes on. They went out 3 times on Friday and were focused and enjoyed the experiment. One student said they were going to do this with her parents and younger sister the next day. That's a sign of a great lesson. Also at the Balch, Mrs. Kayer's 3rd grade class made homemade applesauce from scratch. Everyone enjoyed cutting the apples, smelling them cook in the crock pot throughout the day, and finally making the applesauce by churning the Foley food mill that separates the apples from their seeds and skin. The best part was eating the applesauce at the end. Every Thursday at the Coakley Middle School, Principal Dr. Frasick greets the students with a positive sign as they enter school. The message is generally simple: you are awesome, great smile, but has a big impact. This is a movement that is happening at schools across the country. It definitely feels silly holding a sign, but as students read it, smile, and often respond, "You're awesome too," it really brightens the day. A little positivity goes a long way. The Prescott has come alive with energy this week. Last week, students in library with Mrs. Miller worked on a variety of coding skills, including completing a task to move a small robot to different locations. Many students also had the chance to do some cool coding with code.org, where they got to program Angry Birds to travel around an obstacle course. Teachers and students capped off this week with an amazing high-energy assembly about making positive choices. Kids and teachers all learned about how to bounce back from a negative situation, how to calm themselves down, and even got a little energy with some pretty neat dance moves. We thank our generous PTO for bringing in this assembly. It's election season at the Cleveland School. 4th and 5th grade students are seeking seats this year for student council. Posters were designed and speeches presented. Each upper grade classroom selects 2 of their classmates as representatives. We will report back when the results are in. Last week, the Callahan School celebrated the start of the school year with their annual open house. The staff and students would like to give a huge shout out and thank you to Donahue Realty for donating not only ice cream, but their time scooping and serving hundreds of sundaes. In addition, students brought family members to their classrooms to see all the wonderful things that have been happening this year. The PTA also held their annual book fair, providing wonderful literature for our students. The night was a great way to kick off the school year. Preschoolers at the Little Mustang Preschool Academy had fun learning about germs and hand washing with school nurse Tammy Kirsch. They got to use Mrs. Germy, a black glow light that causes pretend germs to glow. Students put on some pretend germs and observed how they glowed under the light. They then washed their hands and looked under the light to see how the germs went away after washing. Our preschoolers would like to everyone in Norwood to know that it is important to wash your hands often so you don't make you or your friends sick. And finally, Norwood High School held their traditional fall rally. Captains of the teams are introduced and the cheerleaders and the band fire up the crowd. The homecoming king and queen are announced, and this year the honor goes to Jake Smelster and Gia Rodriguez. And as always, there is a fun competition that wraps up the rally. The teachers even get into the spirit. Take a look at the science teachers. Now that is what I call spirit. Well, that's it for school news. For more information around the district, please check the website, Facebook, and watch Norwood Community Media. As always, thanks so much for your continued support of our school community.
Hey everybody, my name is Brian Dunn, filling in for Mike Loof for the sports update this week. On Monday, field hockey picked up a row win over Bellingham 3-0, and golf lost a close match to Westwood. On Tuesday, field hockey continued the winning streak with a 5-0 shutout over Ashland. Allie McDonough, Bryn Garzinski, Maggie Curran, and Katie Welch all scored in the winning effort. And golf lost to Hopkinton 265-231. Lots of action on Wednesday as golf beat Ashland 276-237, making them the first NHS team to qualify for the postseason tournament this season. Boys and girls cross country, as well as girls and boys soccer, all suffered losses to Medfield, and volleyball lost to Ashland 3-1. Due to the rain on Thursday, all games that day were postponed. That's all for sports. Now back to the desk.
Thanks, Brian. Last weekend, the Norwood High School civics class, led by teacher Molly Uppenkamp, traveled to Washington, D.C. for a long-distance field trip. This was the first of its kind that was fully funded by a grant that was secured through town manager Tony Mazzucco.
So students in my civics class, along with the town manager Tony Mazzucco, the assistant town manager Bernie Cooper, his wife Connie, and the superintendent of schools, Dr. Dave Thompson, traveled to Washington, D.C. for 5 days to explore the city and learn about government and do some exploration of careers in public service. Tony Mazzucco, through the town of Norwood, managing the Metro Southwest workforce development, gets a little bit of kind of compensation for managing that regional thing. And so he basically asked for that compensation to come in the form of a grant, and came to the school asking if we could use that grant for a public service oriented trip for students in the civics program. So he found the money for it and came to us with the idea, which we were obviously really excited about, to be able to offer the opportunity to students.
I already knew I was going to take this class like long before even like senior year. So when like summertime I first heard about this, I was like, it was kind of disbelief, because like you get to go to DC, great, cool, for free. Like I didn't have to like pay money for like the flight or anything. It was all expenses. That was just like a shock to me. Like at first I was kind of like, what? Like, come on, don't be real. But it's like, oh my God, we actually got this. So it was kind of just like disbelief and then just excitement.
Well, so it was a really exciting time to be in Washington. There were a lot of protests going on with Supreme Court confirmation hearings happening. So they really got to see a lot of different types of participation in government. You know, from the really formal side, we visited the Supreme Court and the Capitol, so we got to kind of see the spaces where lawmakers work and where cases are decided. But they also saw citizens from all around the country voicing their opinions on what was going on and being able to kind of try to express and influence government in that way. I think that just in general, these types of experiences are what students really remember the most from school. So the more we can do as a town to try to support these types of experiential learning opportunities, whether it's local or going on these big trips, the more we can find ways to support these things for students. We should really, really do it, because it gives them a really lasting and unique learning opportunity.
We hope it was a great learning experience for everyone involved. Hopefully there will be more field trip opportunities like this in the future. Well, that's all for Norwood News. To stay up to date with Norwood Community Media, follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. As always, thank you so much for watching. Have a great weekend.